Hey, welcome to the Undiscovered Games video podcast, where we take a look at the lesser-known board games of the world and share those with you. Today we're going back to 2007 with a game that I didn't even know about until recently. This is called Dragon Parade, designed by the great Reiner Knizia and published by Z-Man Games almost 17 years ago. At its core, this is a game of chance with just a sprinkle of strategy mixed in, but you really have to embrace the idea here that this is not a strategic experience whatsoever. This is a game where you're going to play some cards, place some bets, and there's a little strategy involved in how you do that, but ultimately you're just placing bets and hoping for the best. And that's one of my favorite things about this, because it requires hardly any brain power, but it's still a blast to play. I could teach this game to a 6-year-old. There's not much to it. However, we've been playing this a lot since we added it to our collection only about a month ago. I'm really surprised how much this game has been played in the past month. I've just been bringing it to game night, and a lot of people are like, hey, let's just play a quick game of Dragon Parade, before we go home, because you can set it up in 1 to 2 minutes. You'll be up and running. It's so easy to learn and teach. You won't have to relearn a bunch of rules or anything, and it's what I would call the perfect dessert game to a game night. You just had the main course, like a 2 to 3 hour heavy Euro game where you've crunched your brain and you just don't want to think anymore, but you still want to play something that's fun and exciting. Dragon Parade fits that niche perfectly. I am so excited I found this and added it to my collection, and that's why I'm excited to share it with you, especially because the theme is the Chinese New Year, which is coming up here in a couple weeks. The idea here is you are vendors trying to set up your shop on the street as close to the parade as possible, but nobody really knows where that parade will end. So you're just trying to get your sellers as close as possible to that dragon at the end of the round. The way you do this is players take turns, you play one card, you move the dragon, and then you place one of your sellers out on the board. Now there's a little bit of strategy in how you do this, which I'll get into in this video, but after you do that, the next player plays a card, moves the dragon, and places another seller. Each player does this 3 times until everybody's placed all 3 of their sellers, and then finally everybody plays one final card to move that dragon one last time. Wherever that dragon stops moving, that's where the money is. That's where you want your sellers to be, and you'll get varying amounts of points based on where your sellers are in relation to the dragon. If the dragon ends up on your seller's space, you're going to get big money, and it feels like you just hit the jackpot. And that's one of my favorite parts of this game. If you can hit it just right, it's so rewarding. And I would say this game sort of reminds me of betting on a roulette wheel or something like that, except you have a little bit of control over where that ball might land. So let's take a look at how Dragon Parade plays, and I think you'll see why I think this is a charming little game of chance. In the box, you're going to find this beautifully illustrated game board. It's a small board, but it does the job just fine. Place that in the center of the table. Everybody's going to take their 3 sellers in their player color. Make a supply of this money. Money is your victory points, so at the end of the round, you'll get paid in these cardboard money tokens, which look really nice, by the way. Shuffle this deck of cards and deal 6 cards face down to each player. Everybody keeps their hand secret from their opponents and place this deck off to the side until the next round of the game. You're going to play as many rounds as there are number of players. So if there's 4 players, you're going to play 4 total rounds of this game. At the end of each round, the players get paid, you save up your money, and after all the rounds, whoever has the most money is the winner. Now, if you look at the board, you'll notice it's divided into 2 equal halves. One side is red and the other side is yellow. Each side shows a numbered pathway leading toward the city gate of that color. So for instance, down here we have the yellow city gate. Think of the city gate as number 20 on this pathway, so that's its own space. And then you also want to think of this space up here as number 0. This is called the Forbidden City, and this is where the dragon will start. So you take this really cool wooden dragon and place it on the Forbidden City. Just remember, this is a space when you're moving the dragon from one path to another. So using these numbers, I would call the Forbidden City the 0 space along the pathway. So determine a start player however you see fit, and then players just take turns going clockwise around the table. Your turn is very simple. Play one card, move the dragon, and place a seller. That's it. So on my turn, let's say I play the red 5. What that says is I move the dragon 5 spaces toward the red city gate. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I have to place one of my 3 sellers anywhere on the board that is numbered. So I cannot place my seller on the city gates. I cannot place my seller on the Forbidden City. but I can place my cellar on any open space. Each space can only hold one cellar. So if there's already a cellar on a space, I cannot go there. There's one other restriction for placing a cellar, and you can never place your cellar in an open space that's boxed in by two other cellars, like this right here in this example. So we have a cellar here and a cellar here. Well, we have an open space here. I'm not allowed to place a cellar in this space, but I could place my cellar on this side because it's not boxed in on both sides. In addition, I could place my cellar here because the dragon does not box you in. It's only if you're boxed in by two other cellars. That can be your own cellars or opponent's cellars. It does not matter. So that would be the end of my turn after I place my cellar on the board. Then the next player in clockwise turn plays one card to the table. You always play your cards face up. This would be a yellow 7. And what that says is this player must move the dragon 7 spaces toward the yellow gate. So you go backwards along the red path, cross over this city space here. Again, this is a space, so you count this in your movement. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now this player places a cellar, again, on any open space of the board that is allowed. So let's say they place their cellar here. And then the next player in clockwise order goes. You just keep doing this. So let's say they play a yellow 2. So they're going to move 2 spaces farther toward the yellow gate. They might place their cellar here. Now the next player plays a 1 red. That moves the dragon back toward the red 1 space. They're going to place their cellar here. So you just keep doing this one player at a time. You play a card, move the dragon either toward the yellow or toward the red. So it's like this ongoing tug of war thing going on. But what's interesting is the more cellars that get placed out on the board, the more information that you have about what your opponents might have in their hands, or at least where they want that dragon to end up, because you want the dragon to end closest to your cellars. So once everybody has placed all 3 of their cellars on the board, then at that point you'll have 3 cards left in your hand. Everybody has to discard 2 of those face down, so you'll only have 1 more card to play. Once everybody discards 2 of those 3 cards, you continue where you left off. Each player plays 1 card at a time, moves the dragon accordingly, except now you just don't place any more cellars out. Now you're just watching it play out in real time and sort of cheering the dragon on to get close to your cellars. So once everybody plays all their cards, that's where the dragon ends, and then we proceed to scoring. And now would be a good time to talk about how to score. So wherever that dragon ends up determines how to score, and there's 2 possible situations that might happen. Either the dragon ended on a space with a cellar on it, or the dragon ended on an empty space or ran off the board completely. So let's show you an example here. Let's say it ended like this. The dragon ended on the same space as this blue cellar. This blue cellar gets 5 coins from the bank. Now you look for an uninterrupted chain of cellars directly connected to this blue cellar. So in this example, we have a chain of cellars here. We have the white cellar, we have another blue cellar, and we have a green cellar, but then it's broken up by an empty space. So we just look at this chain, okay? So again, the blue player touching the dragon, that cellar gets 5 coins. Then these each get 3 coins. So blue actually gets another 3 coins, white gets 3 coins, and green gets 3 coins. Now we just look at every other cellar that's on this correct half of the board. So whichever side of the board the dragon ended up on, in this example, the yellow half, every other cellar on this yellow half gets 1 coin. So in this example, we give 1 coin to this cellar, 1 coin to this cellar, and 1 coin to this cellar. Finally, any cellars on the wrong side of the board, so in this example, any cellars over here on the red half of the board get nothing. You never give out any coins in this game to cellars who are on the opposite half of the board from the dragon, wherever that dragon ends. So just remember that. And also, it's important to note that when you're calculating a chain of cellars, a chain can never span from the red side over to the yellow side because it's always going to be broken up by this forbidden city space. You can never place a cellar on this space, so that's always going to break up a chain. So now let's look at what happens when the dragon ends on an empty space. So let's say the board looked like this. It's the end of the round. This dragon ended on this space here. Now what we do is we look for the closest chain of cellars to the left and to the right. So in this example, this chain has a green, and a blue, and this chain has just the white. So those are the two closest chains on either side of the dragon. All of these sellers get 3 coins. Now you look at any other sellers that are on the correct half of the board, wherever the dragon ended up, and they all get 1 coin each. And once again, any sellers on the wrong half of the board get nothing. It's important to note when you're looking for the nearest chain to the left and the right of the dragon, if that chain happens to be on the other half of the board, then those sellers do not score any points. You never give out points to sellers on the opposite half of the board. Okay, what happens if the dragon exits the city gate during the game or during the round? Let's say, the dragon's here and we're mid-round. Let's say this player plays a 5 yellow and that pushes the dragon out of the gate. At this point, the round ends immediately. Nobody plays any more cards, and then we proceed to scoring as if the dragon ended on an empty space. So then we just look for the closest chain of sellers to the dragon, which is here. Each of these sellers gets 3 coins. Each of these sellers gets 1 coin for being on the correct half, and then all these sellers over on the wrong half get 0 coins. So there may come a time in the game where strategically it makes sense to just push that dragon out the gate. If you have like 2 sellers down there, nobody else has their sellers on the right side of the board, you could just force that dragon out real quickly and bank a few quick points while denying your opponents a bunch of points. So there's some little subtle strategies you can try. It's nothing too brain burning or anything, but it's just kind of fun to try out the different things and to see how it plays out every time because it's so different. You never know how that dragon is going to move. Sometimes it gets pushed really far to one side and you are sure that it's going to end on that side of the board, but somebody's hoarding, the 6, 7, and 8 of the other color, and there's all kinds of ways it can play out. I've seen it play out a lot of different ways, and that's what makes it fun. Another thing to note is if the dragon ever ends the round on this Forbidden City space, nobody gets any coins, and then you just have to start a new round. Once again, you play as many rounds as there are players. So at the end of the round, after you divvy out the money, you just gather up all the cards, shuffle them back together, everybody takes their pawns back off the board, reset the dragon to the 0 space at the center of the board, and you just deal out your 6 cards and do it all again. So at the end of all of that, whoever has the most money is the winner. So that's how you play Dragon Parade. Now let me continue to talk about some things I love about this game. So as you can see, like I've mentioned many times throughout the video, not a ton of strategy here, not a ton of depth here, but there is a nice timing element to figuring out when to play which cards. It's also fun to hedge your bet a little bit, as the round progresses, you know a little bit more about where the other players are, where the dragon, has a better chance of landing. And if you can just guess the correct half of the board, you're going to get some sort of payout. But then you have to weigh, do you want to go all in on the red side, or do you want to split it up a little bit if the dragon is going back and forth? So a lot of fun little subtle decisions to weigh. Again, you don't have a ton of control over it, but it's fun to try to guess, and when you do guess correctly, it's very satisfying. There's a level of excitement that I can't quite explain until you sit down and play it. You're latching on to the hope that you have some control over that dragon, even though realistically you have very little control over how it ultimately plays out. You can sort of read the other players and gauge where they're placing their sellers. Sometimes it makes sense to just piggyback off of their big chain over there. If 3 other players are in a chain, then they all have a shared interest in trying to get that dragon over there. So maybe you just piggyback off that, or maybe you try to, go out on your own, be a lone wolf, and break that chain and force the dragon over to your side of the chain. Lots of little subtleties there, not a ton of control over what happens, but it's fun to try those different things out and hope for the best. And that's what I think is exciting about this game, is how differently it plays out every single time, because you never use the full deck of cards, so you never know which numbers are sitting out there. And then that last turn of the round, you discard 2 cards, and then it's just whatever happens. That last round is so exciting to watch it play out because you're not placing any more sellers. You're just sitting back with your popcorn and watching it play out. And I like that. It's just a really fun mechanism. Kind of reminds me of, action programming games like Colt Express, or even some heavier games like Shogun, where you just play all your cards up front and then watch it play out. Whatever happens. It's completely out of your control at that point. And this game does that really well. So that's Dragon Parade. I have this rated rated an 8 out of 10, believe it or not, and that's a really high rating for a game of luck, but I cannot deny how much fun we've had with this over the past month. I mean, this has been a blast. I never dreamed we would log 10 plays of Dragon Parade in the first month, but we have, and we're probably going to play again tomorrow for our family game night. So I've tried this with family game night, I've tried this with our regular game group, and nobody has had anything bad to say about this other than we have run out of these coins from time to time when we play with 4 and 5 players. I can't believe they wouldn't include enough coins to keep score with. So we've just had to keep score on paper at some of the higher player counts, which is, a minor gripe, but it is kind of annoying because these coins look really cool, and then it's like, oh, we ran out. So that's just kind of a little bummer. But aside from that, this is such a little charming game. I love the smaller box that makes it easier to store, easier to throw in the game bag and take to any game night. I love the quick setup time. I mean, you can get right into this game, and even this quick teaching time. This is not a super strategic game, but you're gonna have fun with it if you don't take it too seriously. I would say it loses a little bit of its excitement at 2 and 3 players. Definitely try to play this with 4 and 5 players if you can, but you can still have fun with it at the lower player counts. I just think it's really designed for a higher player count. I almost look at it like a party game in a way. You're just having fun, So great aesthetics, love the smaller box, love the artwork on the box, on the cards, and especially on the game board. It's a beautiful little board. Even though it's a small board, it's just so charming. So I keep using that word, but this defines charming in my opinion. This has all those old school board game flavors that I love in board games, and that's what this channel here is all about. So if you're not subscribed yet to Undiscovered Games here on YouTube, make sure you click subscribe so you can learn more about these little hidden treasures that are sitting out there waiting to be discovered. Like I said, I just now discovered Dragon Parade 17 years after it was released, and there's thousands of other games out there just waiting to be found, and I can't wait to share more with you on the next episode. So what do you think? Does Dragon Parade look like something your game group would enjoy? What is your favorite game of chance, or what's your favorite, cool down game after a heavy game? Something that you just throw on the table for some casual fun? Let me know in the comments. I love to chat about board games, and if you want to support the channel more, there is a digital tip jar in the description below. It's just a PayPal link. You can donate any amount you like. You don't have to do that. I don't expect that, but if you like my content, that's one way you can help out. Another way to support the channel is to follow me over on Instagram. I'm at undiscovered_games. I post a lot of cool pictures and written reviews over there, but the best way to help the channel, like I always say, make sure you're subscribed right here on YouTube, and make sure all your board gaming friends are subscribed here on YouTube as well. So as long as my subscribers keep going up, I will continue to post content right here. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Until the next episode, this is your Undiscovered host saying we'll see you on the next one.